This law included multiple layers, not executing scholar officials and remonstrators, restraining eunuchs, imperial relatives, and princes from interfering in politics, balancing civil and military power, dividing and checking central and local authority, chancellery governance, censorate supervision, mandatory procedural passage of edicts through zhongshumenxia, encouraging diverse opinions, and prohibiting arbitrary one-man rule. Together, they formed an elaborate and stable framework of power. Operation Jiao Dongmei, in the Transformation of the Great Song, further clarifies that the most central spirit of Northern Song politics was principle is supreme. This proposition was not empty rhetoric, but a fundamental principle running through early Northern Song political practice. Principle stood above imperial power, public discourse above private will, and law above arbitrariness. The ancestral institutions precisely translated principle is supreme from political ideal into an institutionalized, conventionalized, and operational restraint mechanism, forming a flexible constitution with real binding force on monarchical power. It relied not on violent coercion, but on political tradition, scholar-official consensus, historical precedent, and court-wide public discourse, preventing the emperor from ruling arbitrarily based on personal whims. Jiao Dongmei, 2020. 36. Wang Ruilai, in a study of imperial and chancellery power in the Song dynasty, uses extensive institutional ENCE to argue that the most crucial historical significance of the Northern Song ancestral institutions lay in the institutional restraint of imperial power. Traditional scholarship often characterizes ancient China as autocratic imperial power, yet Song monarchy was precisely a limited monarchy constrained by institutions, procedures, conventions, public discourse, and the scholar-official group. Although the emperor occupied the highest position, he could not arbitrarily alter institutions, appoint officials, issue orders, or execute ministers. Imperial power was firmly enclosed within ancestral precedent and administrative procedure, forming a political structure in which monarch and scholar officials jointly held, shared, and checked state power. Wang Ruilai, 2011. Wu Shiqi, Qian Mu, in traditional Chinese government and politics, concluded even more directly, Song politics was by no means monarchical autocracy as misunderstood by later generations. On the contrary, it was a scholar-official, government centered on literati, grounded in the principles of separation and limitation of power, and focused on public discourse and law. Although Song chancellery power was more dispersed than in the Tang, it was not weakened. Rather, it became more institutionalized, procedural, and collective. The censorate was independent, veto procedures rigorous, recruitment based on civil service examinations, and decisions dependent on chancellery deliberation. The emperor functioned more as a supreme symbol of shared reverence and trust than an autocrat dictating every affair. Qian Mu explicitly emphasized, the Song was actually a shared system of figurative monarch and republican governance, not autocracy by one man. Qian Mu, 1955, 72. Chen Yinke offered a famous judgment on Song civilization. The culture of the Chinese nation, after thousands of years of evolution, reached its apex in the Zhao Song era. This apex lay not only in literature, scholarship, and technology, but also in the rationalization of political institutions, the balancing of power structures, and the maturation of scholar-official subjectivity. The fundamental framework supporting all this was precisely the Northern Song political order, with the ancestral institutions as its supreme principle and shared rule with scholar officials as its operating model. Through an unwritten constitution, it achieved a rare form of governance in traditional Chinese politics: limited monarchy, rational government, social openness, and relative freedom of speech. 第三节与士大夫共治天下，祖宗之法的权力结构与政治实践。Section 3. Shared rule of the realm with scholar officials. The power structure and political practice of the ancestral institutions. If the ancestral institutions were the fundamental law of Northern Song politics, then shared rule of the realm with scholar officials was its most central, stable, and iconic power structure. It was not a slogan, but the founding principle and governing norm mutually recognized, long practiced, and not easily subverted by ruler and ministers from the dynasty's founding until the Shining reforms, Wang Anqi's reforms. From the early Northern Song, Emperors Taizu and Taizong established the basic direction of shared rule with Confucian scholars. Emperor Taizu clearly stated, The state establishes examinations and selects scholars precisely to obtain worthies to share the governance of the realm with us. Songhuiyao Jigao selection. That Emperor Taizong, likewise, told chancellery ministers, "The world is vast. You and I govern it together. Each must exert utmost public loyalty to fulfill this trust." Extended continuation to the Zizhi Tongjian, J. Sanshiyi. The terms joint governance and shared rule clearly indicate that scholar officials were not servants or tools of the ruler, but political agents who jointly governed the realm, shared responsibility, and abided by law. This shared structure was continuously strengthened over the first century of the Northern Song. The scale of civil service recruitment expanded, bringing commoner scholars into the core of governance. ZHONGSHU Supervised Administration, the PRIVYCOUNCIL Military Affairs, and the THREFINANCIALBUREAUS Revenue, forming a division of Labour and Checks. CENSORS and REMONS. TORS took speech responsibility as their duty, impeaching premiers, admonishing the emperor, and vetoing edicts, forming a powerful supervisory and checking force. Scholar officials identified with the Taoist tradition upheld moral integrity and took public discourse as their standard, establishing political values and normative authority independent of imperial power. The most direct and complete original source embodying the fundamental principle of shared rule with scholar officials comes from a famous imperial debate between Emperor Shenzong and Wen Yanbo during the controversy over Wang Anshi's reforms, recorded in extended continuation to the Zizhi Tongjian J. 221 and Jishi Benmo of the extended continuation J. Wushiqiu. Emperor Shenzong said, "Changing laws and institutions truly displeases many scholar officials, yet how is it inconvenient for the common people?" Wen Yanbo replied, "We govern the realm with scholar officials, not with the common people." This remark is often taken out of context and misinterpreted as scholar officials ignoring the people, completely divorced from the Northern Song political context. Emperor Shenzong's logic was, even if the reforms offended, scholar officials, they benefited the people and could therefore be forcibly implemented. Wen Yanbo's response did not deny the importance of livelihood, but directly pointed to the institutional essence of the Northern Song founding. Governing authority over the realm was jointly held by the monarch and scholar officials. State law, political order, administrative operation, and public judgment were all born and maintained by the scholar official group. The ruler could not cast aside scholar officials, public discourse, and ancestral law to rule arbitrarily based on personal will and a handful of powerful ministers. In other words, what Wen Yanbo upheld was the bottom line of shared rule, established by the ancestral institutions. The realm was not the emperor's alone, nor a realm in which the emperor spoke directly to the people, but one in which emperor and scholar officials jointly upheld law, held power, and determined state policy. Scholar officials were the bearers of principle, public discourse, institutions, and tradition. Without their consensus and shared structure, imperial power lost its legitimate foundation, and politics descended into arbitrariness and chaos. Leading Northern Song statesmen such as FUB, I, SI, MA, GU, ANG, LU, GONG, ZHU, and ZHANG, FANG, PING, repeatedly reaffirmed the same principle on various occasions. The realm was vast, affairs innumerable, and the ruler could not govern alone, but must share rule with ministers. Fubi bluntly stated, "The son of heaven's greatest duty lies in selecting premiers, appointing worthy ministers, and distinguishing gentlemen from petty men. All else is not his personal concern." Record of the words and deeds of famous song ministers. Sima Guang further emphasized that the ruler must follow the ancestors above and consult ministers and the people below, that decisions must emerge from public discourse. Orders follow procedure, and one must not act against the multitude out of personal feeling or alter established institutions. This was the most straightforward institutional expression of shared rule. The ruler upheld principle, abided by law, selected personnel, and reigned quietly, while scholar officials deliberated, decided, administered, and supervised, together forming a stable political center.